What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Hello, it is me. The last 5 days have been days. That's about all I remember. I was really sick, but here I am, breaking down this wild 9-game slate. So, I might be a little off on some new line combinations. I know what they are. I don't know if they're new or they switched today. I literally couldn't even watch hockey the past few days. I legitimately could not look up. I know that sounds weird, but I couldn't. And it was weird, but here we are. I'm feeling good enough to do the show. I wanted to do the show on Tuesday, and I would have, but I couldn't look up. But here we are, joining me to break down this wild slate in his throwback Seattle Supersonics hat. I need to get some Seattle Supersonics gear. That was the bomb. Sean Kemp, Kevin Durant. What's going on, Cliffy?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I really loved NBA Jam back in the 90s. Always played as Kemp and Peyton. It's kind of why I bought the hat pretty much. Yeah, not a whole lot going on. Interesting games last night. Your Rangers pulled out a win in the third period thanks to a Chris Kreider shorthanded goal, of all things.
Loose on skates.
My Montreal Canadiens, we were talking before the show. I've never seen a team get speed bagged that bad in the first 5 minutes of a game. I don't remember a team getting speed bagged that bad in the first 5 minutes of a game in my life. I think after 4 minutes and 15 seconds of Montreal and Los Angeles, the Kings were up 10-1 in shots. And I was telling you, there's a couple goals maybe Jakub Dobeš should have had. But if he doesn't play the way that he does in that first period, it's honestly 5-0 Kings. It was 6. I think it was 2-1 after the second period, 3-2 early in the third, finished 6-3 Los Angeles. It was nowhere close to that. That could have been an 8-0 game. So not great for the Habs. Should shout out some winners. First, do have to shout out mshort09 from the Discord. He had a takedown last night thanks to Mr. Kevin Fiala. Kevin Fiala at back-to-back 2-goal games. So shout out mshort. Nice to see him get one on the board. Also, Michael Peterson, you see him there in the chat. He took down first in the $1 5 max on Tuesday night. He had Utah and Toronto. And then he said he took down the $5 single entry last night. So he went back-to-back on Tuesday and Wednesday night. So congrats to him. We've had some winners over the last couple of days. Hopefully we can get some more winners tonight. I try to keep things positive when we're talking about slates, because even if there's 10 games, even if there's a couple I don't like, I can usually find a lot to like in 7 or 8 of the games. This is one of those slates where I'm looking at the 9 games on the board, and there's a couple where I like the matchups, or I'm looking forward to the games, or whatever. There's a lot of games here tonight that look to be somewhat of a mess. It's kind of interesting in that sense to break it down, but it also makes me a little bit nervous. So we'll see how these games go here tonight.
Yeah, I put it in chat and no one seemed to care, but I'll say it anyway here and no one will seem to care. But 7 of the 9 road teams have a total of 3 or higher. Conversely, 7 of the 9 home teams have a 2.7 or lower. So a lot of road favorites here tonight. It doesn't really play too much of a factor to me, but yeah, congrats to the winners last night. For some reason, I thought M. Short was a 20-year-old kid. And he was like, I got to play the late slate. I was like, you could just get a good night's sleep, dude. You're young. He's like, dude, I'm married with 3 kids. That's all I got. I was like, I feel you, dog. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, congrats to you guys. Hope you guys keep it going. We should get into this slate because we do have a lot to cover, lots of injury news, lots of lines all mixed up. So there is about 200 of you hanging out with us on this Thursday afternoon. If you're in New Jersey, nice little ice storm right now, big nor'easter coming this weekend. If you're into weather, yay. But if you do want to go premium, you can click the link in the chat below, and you can use promo code Stochastic15. That will get you 15% off any subscription of your choice. I did see some of you guys signing up for PGA this week. I do appreciate it. I do know how to fix my name now. I don't have to be whatever Batista or whatever it was, but I'm going to leave it because it's hilarious. Greenwich Batista. When someone uses the affiliate link, I'll get an email that says, "Congrats, Greenwich Batista. Someone has used your affiliate link." And it's the funniest thing. It makes me chuckle every time. I know how to fix my name now, but I'm not going to do it. I do appreciate you guys. I cursed Buffalo Chicken. Oh, the city, not Buffalo Wild Wings. I'd rather go to Buffalo Wild Wings than go to Buffalo to have wings. But anyway, let's get into the slate. Let's start it off with a doozy. The Ottawa Senators with a 2.5 total heading into Tampa Bay. The Lightning have a 3 total. There are a lot of things going on here. Shane Pinto is out. Anthony Cirelli is out. Ottawa going 11-7. Tampa could be going 11-7 because every time they put Cam Atkinson in the top 6 at practice, he never makes it to the game for some reason. So, it is very possible Tampa goes 11-7 here tonight. Cliffy and I were talking about the Ottawa side a fair bit before the show. He'll break it down more eloquently than I could. Or I can, but I'll try. Basically, what he was saying was one of Tkachuk, Stützle, or Batherson are out on every shift, and they basically just rotate through forwards that are rested with them in the 11-7 because, Brady Tkachuk, midway through the second period, the last game, I think he had 5 or 6 different lines he went out with. So they're basically just rotating their top players with whoever is not tired on the bench. So it is kind of hard to prioritize Ottawa here. Now, I will say this is a pretty good matchup with Anthony Cirelli out. Anthony Cirelli, Brandon Hagel together have been excellent defensively. Now, you take Cirelli out of that mix, there's nothing to worry about defensively from Tampa. It's just hard to even possibly think about stacking anything. Yes, they put Tkachuk, Giroux, Garrig together, but will they play most of their time at 5-on-5 together tonight? Probably not. So I think I would reserve Ottawa to one-offs, one off Tkachuk, one off Stützle, one off Batherson, one off Giroux. It's just too hard to pinpoint. The Senators at 11-7 are like John Tortorella doing an 8-ball before the game. They're just throwing forwards on the ice that are breathing properly. So it would be completely just one-offs for me. I know they have the lowest total on the slate, but I honestly don't mind the matchup. So I think I would consider one-offs here. On the Tampa side, I have no faith these lines are going to stick together. I have no faith that these lines are going to make it to warm-ups. If they go 11-7, I'd be more interested, right? Yes, it's Forsberg and net, and yes, Ottawa's generally been decent defensively. Who cares? You know what I mean? They played the other night. Ottawa took a ton of penalties. I think a one-off Kucherov is fine. One-off Hagel, one-off Point, two-man Point Kucherov. Point and Kucherov are going to get their time together. I have no faith if Cam Atkinson is in the lineup that he sticks there for more in the shift. So I would not really stick to stacking either side. I'm more of a one-off type of guy in this game. I think the safest two-man you could pinpoint in this game and in its entirety is Point and Kucherov.
Yeah. Ottawa last game, it happened after Pinto got hurt. He got hurt midway through the first period. And then after that, Norris is out already. Pinto was then gone. So they're basically down their top 2 centers, or 2 of their top 3 centers, sorry. So yeah, they basically just made sure one of Stützle, Giroux, Tkachuk, or Batherson was on the ice at all times. There's only a couple shifts where none of them were on the ice. Going 11-7 here tonight, it's going to be the same thing. One of the reasons I don't mind two-man stacking something from Ottawa is they're just going to get so much ice time, right? I would be pretty surprised. Stützle's going to be over 20 minutes. Giroux's going to be close to 20. Kachuk's going to be close to 20. Batherson's going to be close to 20. maybe a little less, like 18 to 19. Grieg's probably going to push 20. They're not playing the fourth line, and they only have 11 forwards in the lineup anyway. So with Pinto and Norris out, that means they basically have like 4 forwards that are going to get a ton of ice time. So that's why I don't mind playing like Tkachuk and Stützle, Tkachuk and Batherson. Like it'd be Tkachuk plus somebody. But full on stacking, like, I think they scored 1 power play goal against Tampa the other night. And like Tampa's been a pretty good penalty killing team. Maybe they get worse without Cirelli. Who knows? Tkachuk has a really strong projection. That should be said. Like his projection is over 6 points, DK points higher on Stochastic tonight than the next closest Ottawa skater. So I don't mind one-off Brady Tkachuk at all. Like 3-man or 4-man stacking Ottawa, I think I'm out. On the Tampa side, like I just really don't think these, like you said, these lines aren't going to stick together. You're going to have something, I think, somewhat similar to what Ottawa's going to do, which is like Nikita Kucherov probably plays 24, 25 minutes. Brain Point, Jake Gensel, and Brandon Hagel probably going to be all around or over 20 minutes. And then you're just going to rotate some guys next to them. So if you want to do like Point, Kucherov, and Nick Paul or something, like I think that's even in play, because there's going to be shifts where they're on the ice together just because of the way that they're going to run their lines. But I agree with you. For me, it's basically a one-off Tkachuk. If you want to pair him with Batherson or something, I think that's fine. A Kucherov Point 2-man makes a lot of sense. Kucherov as a one-off, just in general, makes a lot of sense here tonight, just because he's going to get so much ice time. He has the third highest DK total here, projection here tonight, the highest amongst all wingers. So there are some wingers I don't mind one-offing here. As far as full stacking a line goes, I'm out.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, in single entry, I don't even mind getting to some one-offs in this game, but like full stacking is just a chore. Vegas Golden Knights with a 2.7 total. Heading into New Jersey, the Devils have a 2.8. The Devils are missing Nico Hischier, Siegenthaler, Markstrom. It's Nico Dawes in net. Vegas lines are a mess. Eichel, Barbashev, Olofsson, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Holtz, Stone, Saad, Howden. It's like what? From a real life hockey perspective, this doesn't even make too much sense. From a DFS perspective, this makes absolutely no sense. Like, this isn't the matchup it was 6 weeks ago going into New Jersey. Like, that was one of the worst matchups on the board. Missing your best shutdown defenseman, you're missing your number 1 goaltender, your number 3 goaltender starting. You're missing your best defensive center, best two-way center. There's no matchups that really concern me. Nico Dawes is a nice goalie, but he's neither Jake Allen nor Jacob Markstrom. Markstrom is one of the best in the league. I don't know if I can stack these Vegas lines, because 1, they aren't great, and 2, I have no faith that they're going to stick together as a whole. Like, I think Hurdle Dorofeyev is a pretty safe bet to stay together. Whether Holtz makes it through the game there, I don't think so. Eichel, Barbashev, fairly safe bet that they'll stick together. Olofsson making it through there, questionable. So, like, I think 2-mans here are okay, like Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Eichel, Barbashev. Like, if they go down 1-0 in the second period, I would not be shocked to see Stone move up to the top line, to see Saad on the second line, you know what I mean? So, to be safe, I would stick to 2-mans, and I think I prefer Hurdle, Dorofeyev to Eichel, Barbashev, just because they're cheaper. They're on the top power play unit together. They've played well together. Eichel and Barbashev ran hot at the beginning of the season with Stone. They really haven't done a ton since. Eichel is shooting a lot recently. I think an Eichel one-off is fine, but from a 2-man perspective, it'd be Hurdle and Dorofeyev. In terms of a full line stack, I just don't think I can get there. On the Devils side, like, if anything, it would be Hughes, Bratt, Palat, but like at 18K, this team is Vegas has generally been decent defensively. They don't take any penalties. Like, they're more like NJ1 would be an MME play for me. A Hughes one-off, I guess, is fine. Like, push comes to shove, I like the Vegas side. I just don't like these lines, and I just don't have faith if I'm full stacking that these guys are going to make it through the game, i.e. Holt and Olsen. So my favorite two-man is Hurdle Dorofeyev. I think Eichel one-off is fine. Eichel Barbashev, perfectly fine. I just worry that if they're losing, you're going to see Stone and Saad move up.
I mean, that happened in the last game. For the third period, they moved Stone to the top line and Olofsson back to the Dorofeyev Hurdle line, which is what they had been running basically since Barbashev returned. So, I agree that these aren't line combinations I'm relying on. I would probably go back to Hurdle and Dorofeyev just because, as you mentioned, they're both on the top power play unit. I hate leaving Jack Eichel off because he has been shooting a fair bit for well over a month now, 68 shots in his last 20 games. That's almost 3.5 shots per game. That's a pretty good, solid number for DFS. He does have, a high projection, easily the highest projection of any Vegas skater. He's, over 5 points higher than the next closest option, Shea Theodore being the next closest guy. So he's even higher than the next closest forward. But by the same token, maybe New Jersey with Kovacevic and whomever they decide they want to use in a shutdown matchup, probably with Pesce, maybe they can do reasonably well in a shutdown role. After that, once you get to, Dillon and Hamilton, once you get to Hughes and Nemec, I don't think the matchups are that bad. So I think Hurdle Dorofeyev, at the very least, is a two-man I would go to. Alex Holtz is interesting because this is the revenge narrative for him coming back to New Jersey after they traded him in the offseason. He's not that expensive. 13,500, 3.4% ownership. I mean, they're fine as a filler. They're not somebody outright targeting here tonight. I think Dorofeyev Hurdle two-man is perfectly fine here. On the New Jersey side, Jack Hughes, 2 goals, 5 shots in his last game. He's constantly going to have a high projection. He's also been shooting the puck a lot. Last 15 games, almost 4 shots per game. It's 3.8 shots per game or something like that. The top line is perfectly correlated on the power play, and that Vegas penalty kill is not good. They don't take a ton of penalties, but the penalty kill itself is not good. And here's the thing. What they decide to do with their matchups now that they have Eric Halla back, I think kind of remains to be seen a little bit. But when Philly was in town last week, they didn't use the Jack Hughes line that often in a shutdown role. But if he does, the big impact for Mark Stone on the top line is defensively, right? With Stone on the top line, that top line over the last 2 years is under 2 goals against per 60 minutes. Without Stone, especially this year, things have gotten worse. I don't mind New Jersey 1 here. Hughes, Bratt, Palat. Hughes is shooting a ton. Bratt's down under 6K. Palat's getting top power play time. I think they get decent matchups against that Vegas top line. They're coming in with positive leverage. And if you look at that price range, honestly, there's just not a whole lot there. We'll talk about Toronto a little bit later. Depends what their lineup looks like. The Vancouver top line is expensive. You have the Carolina top line that is in that price range. They're going into Minnesota, which is a pretty bad matchup. There's just not a whole lot in that price range that I really like. So if you're looking for an 18K line, I think New Jersey 1 is perfectly fine here. The Vegas penalty, like I said, the Vegas penalty kill is bad, and no Mark Stone on the top line means that top line is not going to be good defensively. So I think Hughes, Bratt, and Platt is what I like best in this game. Hurdle Dorofeyev, I think, is a fine two-man. Honestly, it's just hard to get behind Vegas for some reason.
Yeah, no, I agree. Let's get on to another game where it just sucks. Washington Capitals with a 3 total heading into Philly. The Flyers have a 2.6. Kuzmenko and Peltier still out. Kuzmenko's paperwork was completed, but the weather in the area prevented him from flying in. Peltier's visa has not been completed yet. They're both out. The Frost and Farabee have played 4 games already for the Flames. So Washington going Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, Dubois, Protas, McMichael. With all this stuff going on for the Flyers, they reunited Forrester, Cates, and Brink, Konechny, Lawton, and Rodrigo Abols. Michkov, Couturier, Anthony Richard. Like, this lineup is a mess. They're going with Ivan Fedotov in net, not a serious NHL goalie. They broke up Forrester, Cates, Brink because they didn't have, a ton of players they needed to mix and match. They also broke them up because they were just getting absolutely steamrolled after a really good stretch. Now they're back together. They're probably going to take top competition. Like Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome in a small sample haven't been great, but Strome and Ovechkin haven't been great all season, but they are fully correlated. And the other issue that always pops into my head now with Washington is they never miss the empty net. They're like Winnipeg 1 from a couple seasons ago. There's an empty net. Ovechkin will find it. If he hits it after the horn goes off, they'll adjust the clock so the goal counts, just so he can break Gretzky's record this year so they can go on strike and he can, fade to black or whatever. I don't mind Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome here at 17.9 for that reason. 6.1% projected. The Flyers, that line hasn't been great defensively. Their penalty kill sucks. This Washington line fully correlated. If you don't want to go to them, I'm perfectly fine going to Dubois, Protas, McMichael at 13.6. They're a filler that I do like here. You do get McMichael on the top power play unit. Again, this is a really good power play spot, so I would defer kind of to Washington 1. I don't like them better, but I do like the power play more, and that empty net stuff is legit concern if you're not playing Ovechkin. So Washington 1 for me. On the Flyers side, I see there's 8% ownership on Forrester, Cates, Brink at 11.4. I think I'd rather just play Lawton, Konechny, as disgusting as that sounds. Like, I don't have a ton of interest here in the Flyers. It would mostly be on the Washington side. So, one off Konechny, one off Lawton, one off Brink, stuff like that. But it would be Washington 1 for me.
This game is giving me an ulcer. That Caps top line doesn't have a ton of time together. Small sample. They've been a little bit better with Wilson defensively than they were otherwise since Ovechkin returned from injury just after Christmas. But they're not generating a whole lot. 55 shot attempts with Wilson there. Without him there, I was a little bit lower. So not really generating a whole lot. It is a good matchup against the Flyers. Like, the Flyers are just missing too many players at this point. Ryan Poehling, he's been out for a while. Kuzmenko, as Josh mentioned, Kuzmenko and Peltier are not going to be in the lineups. They trade away Farabee and Frost, and Owen Tippett is out tonight. They're missing 4 forwards basically from the starting lineup, and this is not a team that was deep up front to begin with. I don't mind Travis Konechny as a one-off. Like, Konechny's not been shooting the puck at all for a while now. That is concerning. But they're just running out of players to play. Konechny played over 23 minutes last game, over 25 minutes the game before, over 23 minutes the game before that. The game before that, they got their ass handed to them, so he didn't play much. The game before that, he played almost 24 minutes. Konechny's having to play a lot because they're just running out of bodies. So I don't particularly like him in this matchup, but if you're going to give me a player at 6,300 on DK that is a forward that is going to skate 23 to 25 minutes, you have to consider him. Elsewhere, there's just not a whole lot that I'm really all that interested in. I had a little bit of interest if they were going to keep Couturier, Michkov, and Konechny together. They probably end up playing together at some point this game, but Couturier and Michkov really haven't done a whole lot without Konechny on their line. I think that kind of matters. So Konechny one off. if you want to play the Brink line at like 8% ownership or whatever, like go ahead. That feels like, super chalk Calgary at home all over again to me, only in a much worse matchup because Washington's one of the best teams in the league. So connecting one off, that's about it. On the Washington side, like, I guess the top line is fine. Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, 17,900. I'm going to be honest. I'd rather play New Jersey. These Washington guys, like, I get what you're saying about the empty net. It is a better matchup against Philly than against Vegas, obviously. But, the Washington guys don't get a ton of ice time. There are games where Ovechkin's playing like 15 minutes. Like, I think at best you can rely on that line to skate like 17 to 19. Those New Jersey guys, at least Hughes is going to play well over 20 minutes, like 22 probably. Brad will be near 20. Like, it's just more minutes in a home matchup. They've been changing around the power play units a little bit of late. Like, they took Chikrin off, they put McMichael on. Now they've taken McMichael off and they put Protas on. Like, the power play hasn't been going all that well. Like, when Ovechkin returned after Christmas, they had like a 2-week stretch where it was fine, but it's like a month now where the power play really hasn't done a whole lot. So I think Dubois, Protas, and McMichael is where my interest is. Just because, like, Philly doesn't take a lot of penalties. They're at 2.1 times shorthanded per game since the start of January. That Protas line, 57 shot attempts for, 42 against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like, they've been really dominant. Not tremendous offensively, but getting enough ice time and good enough at 5-on-5 to take advantage of a depleted depth from the Philly side. So anything from Washington's top 6, I think, is fine. I kind of like Washington 2 here as a filler. Connecting one off is fine, but I don't have a lot of interest in the Flyers.
Yeah, this game sucks. But there's a lot of those here tonight. So let's get to the main event of the evening. It's not really, but it's the people's main event. Utah Soakers for 3.2 total heading into Columbus. Our Blue Jackets, 2.7. It's a high total considering they just have one line. Utah going Keller, Schmaltz, Kerfoot, Genther, Hayton, Carcone, Doan, Krause, McBain, Matthias Michelli, healthy scratch. Someone go trade for him, please. For the love of God, what is Utah doing? Columbus going Fantilli, Voronkov, Kent Johnson. Easily the best line in the NHL. Facetious? Maybe. Sillinger, Van Riemsdyk, Luca Del Bell Bullas. One of the best names in the game. Danforth, Olivier, Zach Aston Reese. I don't know why I said Columbus 3, but they are getting 3.5% for some reason on this slate. Utah's interesting because the top line is 17.5. They're kind of in that New Jersey, Washington range coming in at 4.7%. Now, this is a really good power play matchup, and you do get Keller and Schmaltz on the top power play unit, but you also get 2 guys on the top power play unit on the second line, Genther, Hayton on the Hayton Carcone line, 13.7. Now they're coming in at 12.5% projected ownership. Here's the conundrum, right? At that ownership, I would prefer to go to the top line. However, if I want power play guys, I am not stacking without Dylan Genther. So I think what I would do is leave off Carcone and add in Schmaltz or Keller. If you add in Keller, that line becomes 18,100. We're still right in that range. You get 3 guys on the power play. You get a lower owned combination because I do want the power play guys, and I don't want to leave off Genther. You could go Keller, Schmaltz, Genther, but then you don't have no center. That's 3 wing. Hayton's the cheapest one, so you kind of want him. So, like, you're kind of, depending on your build, you're not forced into it, but it's the easiest is to go Hayton, Genther, X. And that's like the chalkiest way to do it. But I think for me, it's the best way to do it. If I was going to full stack a line, it would be the top line. But again, I want to do some sort of power play stack. I think full power play stacking is viable here. So, it's just basically what you want to do with Utah if you want to play them. I would do some sort of power play stack. and the guy I would build around is Dylan Guenther. On the Columbus side, Columbus won here. Fantilli, Voronkov, Kent Johnson, 17-4, $100 cheaper than Utah won. 2.8% projected ownership. Excuse me. 5.6% top two stack. They're fully correlated. I don't know how they'll play together. I know Fantilli and Johnson have played some together. That was without Voronkov. I think they'll be fine. This is a tough 5-on-5 matchup, but it's a good power play matchup. So while I do prefer Utah here, I think if you're making 20, 30, 107, 114, 300 if you're married, 450 if you have a child, I think the more lineups I would make, the more likely I would be to get to Columbus 1. So I don't mind Columbus 1, but it would be some sort of Utah power play stack.
Yeah, if it's either or here, I'd rather play Utah. Here's the thing about Utah is like for the first basically like 6-7 weeks of the season, they're the most penalized team in the NHL. That's turned around a lot. Basically since the start of December, just since the start of January, Utah taking 2.1 penalties or they're shorthanded 2.1 times per game. It's tied for the fourth lowest rate in the league. If you look back even further, going back to Thanksgiving, they're basically in the middle of the league by time shorthanded. So other than the first 6 weeks of the season, like going up to mid-November, they haven't really been taking a ton of penalties. And, that without Marchenko, like I like Fantilli as a player. I really do like Voronkov as a player. Without Marchenko, especially, without Monahan and without, Jenner still out and Chinnikov still out and so on and so forth. Like, I worry about paying $17,400 for that line when that Utah stack you mentioned, Hayton, Guenther, and Keller is $700 more expensive, and they are in a better 5-on-5 matchup, and they are in a better power play matchup. So like, and Guenther and Hayton will obviously carry more ownership, but the ownership projection for Clayton Keller tonight is 5%. So that particular trio is probably going to be around the same ownership as Fantilli, Voronkov, Johnson. So if we're talking about a trio at the same, ownership level at roughly the same price, I'd much rather play Hayton, Guenther, and Keller than I would Fantilli, Voronkov, and Johnson. That's just kind of it. So I think I'm out on our Columbus Blue Jackets tonight, at least for their forwards. We'll talk about their defensemen at the end of the show. For me, it's Utah, like you mentioned, that particular power play stack. If you want to stack the entire power play, I think that's very viable here too. Like Columbus hasn't, it's been, Columbus has had a good little stretch here of winning some games. Miraculously, it's been because of the goaltending, which is not something that's usually been said. Like over their last 10 games, they're fourth in the league by save percentage. Conversely, they're like 20th by shots against per minute. They're bottom 10 by expected goals against per minute. Like they've not been good defensively. It's Merzlikins has saved them. I think Tarasov got a start in there. They can't keep going like that. Eventually the dam is going to burst. I really do like the Utah side here. So, I would build around Guenther and Keller particularly, just because Keller's ownership is so low. And then what you want to do from there, add Hayton because you need a center and he's relatively cheap and gets power play time. Sure. Go full power play unit. Sure. Add like Michael Carcone because like he might actually play 17 minutes or something like that and he's super cheap. Sure. It's a Utah side for me. I really don't have a lot of interest in Columbus.
Yeah, I heard you say that you like Fantilli as a player. I heard you say you like Voronkov as a player. I noticed you omitted Mr. Johnson there.
I mean, I do like him as well. He had a sick goal the other night, that spinorama backhand. Yeah. But I think it also kind of highlights how they're going to have to score goals here is like just unbelievable individual efforts. So it worries me a little.
Yeah, all things considered, when that team is healthy, Fantilli and Johnson would be on the second line together, not taking.
Like, honestly, if everybody was healthy, Kent Johnson might be on the third line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Marchenko, Jenner, and Chinnikov, add those three guys to the top six. I don't know, like maybe
Fantilli and Johnson third line.
Could.
Yeah. Got to get the 2026 Cup futures for our Columbus Blue Jackets in early. Larry Bikes, don't bet it for 2028. Carolina Hurricanes with a 3 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 2.5 total. This is just like a generic 5.5. There's no other way to describe it. Like, Carolina or Minnesota's blue line is fully healthy. They have Philip Gustafsson going tonight. They have Joe Eriksson Ek back in a shutdown line. It's like Ranton and Aho Blake have been excellent together in about what was it? It's only been 55 minutes. Like, what did you expect? Like, I was expecting good numbers, right? You're not expecting them to be bad. And they're fully correlated, which is nice. And, Minnesota's penalty kills. But the problem is they're 19,100 going into Minnesota. Before all their injuries on the blue line, earlier in the year, there was 2 spots you didn't want to stack teams going into. It was Los Angeles and it was Minnesota. Obviously, that fell off because they were missing half their defensemen. They're all healthy. You have Eriksson Ek in a shutdown role where he doesn't have to focus on offense because his line mates are Marcus Johansson and Liam Ogren. Every time I hear Liam Ogren, I want to watch The Last Samurai for some reason. But that's neither here nor there. Carolina 1, I think, is fine in MME. 19-1. Fully correlated. Very good numbers. The issue that I'm running into is like, for $1,000 less, I'm just going to go play Hayton, Genther, Keller in a really good power play spot. And that's just the issue I'm running into. So, like, Carolina 1's fine. It's just, this is a brutal matchup. I think if anything on Carolina, it would be like Stahl Jarvis. Because maybe they avoid, maybe they'll see Chisholm and Bogosian, which really is not a bad third pair. But Jarvis plays the most at 5-on-5 of any Kane. You pair him with Stahl. It's not a super expensive 2-man. They're going to avoid the toughest matchups. Like, there isn't like a soft landing spot per se. But like, I don't mind a 2-man of Stahl Jarvis, a 1-off Jarvis, something like that. On the Minnesota side, it would be that top line, Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi. The issue I'm running into is, yes, Carolina has been worse defensively. They're going to avoid the Stahl line, but Carolina still generally has had a very, very good penalty kill. And yes, Rossi has had a very good season, but this line combination just has trouble creating at 5-on-5. And they're coming in over-owned at 9% compared to a 7.5% top 2 stack, which really isn't bad on a 9-game slate, but I would much prefer a really good 5-on-5 line there in a decent power play spot. So, like, I'll just go play Utah in this sense again. Like, I'll spend up here to go play Utah. With Carolina, I'll spend down to go play Utah. So, like, this is the most generic 5-on-5. If this slate didn't suck from, like, a matchup standpoint, like, I would just say I'm moving on. But because there's so many rough matchups here tonight, I think you can consider some stuff on both sides.
I'm not considering anything for Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just, these are good line combinations. Their power play is not good against an excellent penalty kill. I'm just not playing Minnesota. I don't think there's any reason to really waste some time on them. The only thing I'm interested in this game is the Carolina top line. They are expensive at 19,100. We did say one of the things that was concerning us about Mikko Rantanen was ice time. I think it was the game on Saturday He finally cracked 21 minutes for the very first time. Still at 8K. That price has probably got to come down like $1,000. Here's the thing: is Minnesota, like as great as Minnesota is at 5-on-5, their penalty kill is still atrocious, and I think that's the one spot where Carolina can really get to them. Aho, Blake, Rantanen perfectly correlated on the power play. So, like, if I'm playing a line out of this game, I want to go up against the bad penalty kill. And Minnesota's been taking more penalties of late. Like, this isn't a team that typically takes a ton of penalties. But over the last 5 weeks, 2.9 times shorthanded per game. It's the 4th highest rate in the league. So, like, if Carolina can get like 3 or 4 power plays here tonight, you know, they get one on the power play. Maybe they can luck box one at 5-on-5. Rantanen, the empty net merchant that he is, goes and scores an empty net goal, and you're kind of laughing. Carolina 1's the only thing I have interest in. Other than that, I have no interest in this game.
Fair enough. Yeah, like, am I muted? No. I kind of agree with you on the Minnesota side. If I was making 150 and I happened to get a Minnesota top line or a couple in there, fine.
If I was playing 150 and I got Minnesota stacks, I'd withdraw my entries and go to a movie.
Is there anything good playing?
There's a new horror movie out this weekend. Like, no, obviously, if you're playing 150 and you play some Minnesota, like, it's fine. I'm not saying that. I have no interest in these line combinations in this matchup against that penalty kill. It's just pass.
Yeah, no, I completely fine with that. Let's move on as my top stacks disappeared, but we'll get that back up in a second. Florida Panthers with a 3.1 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 2.5. Florida going for Hagee, Barkov, Reinhart, Tkachuk, Bennett, Samokovich, E2D2 Luosterainen with Lundell and Erod. Blues going Thomas, Buchnevich, Holloway, Neighbors, Shen, Kyrou. It's like, can we just stick with some lines here, Blues? I know they're searching a little bit here. Here's Haas, of course. We mentioned the Blues. He's like Beetlejuice. You say Blues 3 times and Haas appears. But Holloway in that top line is interesting. The thing is, and I don't like bashing former Rangers who depart and end up getting better. Buchnevich is one of them. He's having a bad season for whatever reason. I don't know, man. Like, if they're going to go out against Barkov, like, that's just going to be no bueno for me. So if anything, it would be like Shen, Kyrou, Neighbors. Like a one-off Kyrou is fine. I don't know. I don't have a lot of interest, almost no interest in the Blues here tonight. My interest is on the Florida side. It would be that top line of Verhaeghe, Barkov, Reinhart. It is Joel Hofer in net, and if you pay attention to Cliffy speaking, during Blues slates that Hofer starts, he will tell you every time that Hofer on the penalty kill is way worse than Bennington. So I do have some interest here in Florida 1. Like, Tkachuk, I guess, is fine. Like, that line has been pretty good, but, like, you know, the price on Florida 1 is still decent enough, cheap enough where you don't necessarily need Tkachuk in there. It would be a Florida 1 game for me. Maybe some Blues one-offs.
Yeah, I think on the St. Louis side, it'd be Kyrou, Holloway, Shen. That line has probably been St. Louis's best line this season. Now, they broke them up because they had a few rough games together, which, you know, I get. They're trying to make playoffs and all that. But this is especially under Jim Montgomery, this has been their best line. And, you know, over their last 10 games, that Shen, Holloway, Kyrou line, the reason they got broken up, I'm assuming, 54 shot attempts, 2 expected goals, 2.8 actual goals per 60. Like, the offense had been sliding. So Holloway on on that line would have been my interest. Him on the top line, like, it's fine, but am I going to play that top line with Holloway because Holloway's there going into Florida 1? That just feels like a really bad time, especially where St. Louis doesn't have a good power play. Like, one of the big Florida weaknesses has been their penalty kill. Like, last year, they took a lot of penalties, but they had a great penalty kill, so it didn't really hurt them. This year, they're taking a lot of penalties, and their penalty kill is nowhere near as good. Over the last 5 weeks, like middle of the league by penalty kill percentage. If you go back further, if you go back to Thanksgiving, 13th by penalty kill percentage. It's a mid-level penalty kill, and they're taking a ton of penalties. So I would want, if I play anything, it'd be a good power play, but St. Louis doesn't have one of those. And, Holloway on the top line, like, okay, but against that Barkov line, without a good power play, I think it's just a pass for me. So I'm kind of out on St. Louis. For me, I have interest in Florida, and I have a lot of interest in Florida. The reason is the St. Louis penalty kill. You can make an argument that for like 2.5 months now, St. Louis has had the worst penalty kill in the league. Going back to Thanksgiving, dead last by penalty kill percentage in the league at 65.7%, like worse than Minnesota, worse than San Jose. Since the start of January, so just the last 5 weeks alone, second to last at 65.6%. The only team worse is San Jose. Like I said, you can make an argument St. Louis has the worst penalty kill in the league. On the last show, we talked about how the Florida power play, since they got Ekblad back and they weren't rotating, a cast of clowns on the top power play unit, had been performing a lot better. This top line is perfectly correlated. This top line since Christmas haven't had a lot of ice time together, a little over 60 minutes, but in those 60 plus minutes, 71 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals, 4.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. I really like Reinhart, Barkov, or Hagee. They're one of my favorite lines on the board here tonight. I don't think there's any line on the St. Louis side that can slow them down at 5-on-5. The only thing that will slow down Florida is Florida themselves, and the Panthers might be in the best power play spot on the board. So that's another reason why there's a bunch of those 18K lines I don't really like here, like Tampa Bay or Vancouver, even Carolina. Washington's a little bit cheaper, but it's because I do like Florida here. There's another spot a little bit later that's a little more expensive that I also like that we'll talk about. But for me, this is a Florida game. I really like the Florida top line here. I also want to say, if you want a two-man Bennett and Tkachuk, I don't think that's a terrible idea. They're not very good defensively, but they'd be creating a lot of offense. Sam Bennett has 82 shots over his last 20 games, over 4 shots per game. I think he's over 5 shots per game in his last 10. Like, they've been shooting the puck a lot, and maybe Tkachuk does what he does the other night and gets 3 points on 3 goals. Bennett gets the shot bonus with an assist or something, and you're laughing. So I think Florida 2 is fine, but Florida 1 is my interest in this game.
This time I'm muted. I'm an idiot. I am agreeing with you that Bennett Tkachuk would be a fine two-man. But like at that price, I'm just going to go to Florida 1 because of the power play spot. Yeah, Bennett, he goes through these wild stretches where he does not stop shooting. And that's when you're like, please put him on the top power play unit. But then they do it and they take Verhaeghe off. Then you get mad. And then you're going down the yellow brick road, and it's just not the trip you want to be taking. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.3 total. Heading into Calgary, the Flames have a 2.7. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchus, Lehkonen. Wow, it's confusing having Colorado and Calgary on the same screen there. Duran, Middlestat, Parsinen, Colton, Drury, Wood.
It doesn't matter what it is after the top line. You could have stopped there.
I'm giving Ross the boss his due here. Calgary going Kadri, Huberdeau, Farabee, Coleman, Coronado, Backlund, Sharangovich, Frost, Pospisil. Yeah, like Cliffy just alluded to, this is a Colorado 1 or bust game now. In 44 minutes at 5-on-5, that top line, 6 expected goals for, 2.7 actual goals for, so they're not shooting a high percentage. But like 25 high danger chances for per 60. That is disgusting. Now, obviously, that's going to regress.
Yeah, if you want to look at just McKinnon and Natchez, the two of them, 95 minutes together, 95 shot attempts, 4.6 expected goals per 60. It's absurd. They're at 1.9 goals because they're shooting 4.3%. If they were shooting league average at 5-on-5, their goals per minute would be something like 53% higher than league average. They're creating so much that if they were shooting league average, they'd be over 50% higher scoring than the league average rate. It's preposterous how much they're generating at 5-on-5.
They're generating more at 5-on-5 than probably 5 power plays on this slate.
It's probably more than that.
I was trying to be conservative, but this is a good power play spot for Colorado, and that's why I have interest here, because on paper, it's not a very good matchup going into Blake Coleman, Backlund, and Coronado. They're a good defensive team. Dustin Wolf's in net, yada, yada, yada. Their penalty kill isn't good. Now, I don't really care that they're facing Backlund Coleman at 5-on-5. McKinnon's matchup proof. You throw a speedster like Natchez with him, they're like, no one's going to slow him down. The only people that have slowed them down so far in the 95 minutes they've been together is their shooting percentage. So, like, I do really like Colorado 1 here. They're only 22,400. We've talked about Colorado 1 lines with Rantanen and, whomever at like 25,000 at points. At 22,400, it's not super price prohibitive. They're fully correlated. It's a good power play matchup. I don't know, man. Like, if you're worried about the 5-on-5 matchup, they have the highest positive leverage on the slate. So, am I going to play them? I don't know. But, like, every time they're on the slate, I say Natchez is going to be a problem with McKinnon, more so than Rantanen, because he can do more things. He's is he a better player? I don't know. But is he more dynamic in certain areas of the game than Rantanen? Yes. So, like, this line, anytime they have positive leverage and they're not wildly over chalk, like, I am absolutely going to consider them. On the Calgary side, I don't have a ton of interest. One, they're a good defensive team. Two, like, Coleman, Coronado, Backlund would be the line, but they're going into McKinnon, Natchez, and Lehkonen. And yeah, maybe they end up being a trade the chance line, but like, I don't want to find out against probably the fastest line in the league. So then you go to Kadri, Huberdeau, Farabee. Then you're running into a decent defensive center, actually a pretty good defensive center of Jack Drury. You know what I mean? So like, I'm pretty much out on Calgary here. It's the only line I'm really considering in this game is Colorado 1.
Yeah, I'm not in on the Coleman line because of that matchup, like you said, for Calgary. Kadri, Huberdeau, and Farabee would be interesting to me. Like, Kadri and Farabee, 40 minutes together, 75 shot attempts, 3.6 expected goals. On the last show, we talked about how Joel Farabee was one of the Flyers forwards that creates the most offense off the rush, and lo and behold, Nazem Kadri and Jonathan Huberdeau are the 2 forwards in Calgary that create the most off the rush, and that if Farabee were to play with them, they can probably create a lot of quick strike offense. Well, it's only been a few games. Today's game 4 for Farabee in the lineup, but they've been able to create a lot of offense. The problem is that they're $18,000 as a stack. This is the Calgary Flames we're talking about. Nazem Kadri is more expensive than Braden Point on the board here tonight. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Kadri. He's a better volume shooter than Braden Point is. Braden Point, his 82 game pace is also for over 50 goals. So, like, they're just way too expensive. Like, that line is probably $2,000 higher than they should be, not $3,000 higher. So that's kind of why I'm out on Calgary. They're just far, like, Calgary line at 18K is the same price as the New Jersey top line that is perfectly correlated at home. the Florida top line that is perfectly correlated is only $1,800 more expensive. Like, they're just too expensive. So for me, it's Colorado or bust. It's Colorado top line or bust, and it's because of the power play matchup. This is a bad 5-on-5 matchup for the Avs. Now, it was a bad 5-on-5 matchup the other night for the Leafs. We should mention it was Willie Nylander that did all the damage, right? Austin Matthews in his line didn't do very much in that game. Matthews got 3 assists. I think one was with an empty net. One was on the power play. That's why we like Colorado here tonight, is because this is a good power play matchup for them. We went over the offensive numbers for Necas and McKinnon together. Lehkonen skating alongside them perfectly fine. They're cheap enough to stack. They do have the highest top 2 stack on the board here tonight, and it's honestly not close. They're over twice as high as the next highest stack, which is Florida. So I really get wanting to play Colorado here. Here's the thing about the 5-on-5 matchup. I mentioned this on social media somewhere. Michael Backlund, 75 minutes this season at 5-on-5 against these 10 players: Panarin, Austin Matthews, Brady Tkachuk, Keller, Pasternak, Jack Hughes, Marchenko, Scheifele, Kucherov, Crosby. Against those 10 players, Calgary is up 3-1 in goals with a 53% expected goal share with Backlund on the ice. This is a bad matchup. He can shut down anybody. It is a really good power play matchup for Colorado, though, so that's why they're in play for me. They are the highest top 2 stack on the board. If I play anything out of this game in a single entry, it's going to be Colorado 1. McKinnon 1 off is fine if you don't want to play the other guys, but for me, this is a Colorado game.
Yeah. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 3.3 total heading into Seattle. The Kraken, excuse me, have a 2.7. Have you seen an update on Marner?
Yeah. They're leaving Matthews with Nyes and Domi, and the second line is Tavares, Marner, and Nylander.
The first thing that just popped into my head, it's like, oh, do you want to try to make Panarin and Zibanejad work one more time? Like Tavares and Marner just don't work together. I don't know what it is. I will say this. The minute Seattle had a Stevenson line above water, they changed lines. And now it sucks again. I will say this is a pretty good power play spot for the Leafs. Seattle doesn't take a ton of penalties, and it is the coordinate. Like, I don't mind some sort of power play stack. Like, Matthews, Nyes, Domi. Like, yeah, Kako, Beniers, Schwartz have slid a little bit. But, like, at 18-6, I'm in that conundrum where I'm just going to go play Utah, right? The second line now is fully correlated, but they're over 20K. Like, way over 20K, right? Like, they're really expensive. I think it's 22K for Marner, Nylander, Tavares. Yeah, it's like
the Colorado top line's what, like $400 more expensive?
Yeah. It's just like why would I spend $22,000 on a Leafs line without Matthews? I saw a lot of Leafs fans saying that they think the power play was better without Marner anyway. Who do you think they are? Me? Who do you think you are? I am. You know what I mean? Like, that's my line. But, like, the power play was actually better without Matthews. I can't justify spending $22,000 on a Toronto second line. However, it is going into a Stevenson line, so do what you want. Do what you want with that info. I think at some point you're going to see Marner move back up with Matthews, and I think that's the issue. So, like, it would be some sort of power play stack. So maybe I just do like Nylander, like a Nylander one-off. Nylander with Matthews, Nylander with Marner, something like that. So, like, I don't have a ton of interest in full stacking Toronto because I have no faith that Marner sticks with Tavares and Nylander. It's never worked. Coaches like to try to recreate the wheel every once in a while, and then it just never works again. So it would be some sort of power play stack.
And like, I don't know if you looked at the DK prices. Max Pacioretty is $5,300 here tonight. 2 games ago, he was $3,100. His price has gone up $2,200 in 2 games. He's had 1 assist and 4 shots in those games.
Yeah. I don't know what like DK's pricing has been wildly inconsistent. So like, I don't know. Just I don't have a great feeling about the Leafs here. If I'm going to go really expensive, I'll just go to Colorado. Again, if I'm not going to go super expensive, I'm going to go to Utah. I like Toronto here. It's just like I don't have faith in these lines. On the Seattle side, if anything, it would be Menier, Schwartz, Kakko. It's really about it. Like a one-off Bjorkstrand's fine. One-off McCann, something like that. But if I was going to stack a line, it'd be Menier, Schwartz, Kakko.
Yeah, I honestly don't even know what to say about the Leafs because, obviously Tavares, Nylander, Marner don't play together. There's not much of a sample there. Tavares honestly hasn't really been doing a whole lot lately. Like I know he scored a power play goal in that game, but Tavares, it's something like 25 shots in his last 12 games. So basically 2 shots per game. Like he hasn't really been doing a whole lot. It's basically just been Nylander. And you're right. That second line is at a price point now where they're basically in line with Colorado. And if I have the choice, I'll just go play Colorado instead. It's like, do you want to stack the Colorado Avalanche where McKinnon's going to play 22, 23 minutes? Those guys are all going to play 20 plus. And you have Tavares at like 18, who's not been playing well. And then you have to play that stack without Austin Matthews. Like that's just, that's just one of those things where it's just a pass for me. So yeah, Nylander one-off, I think is perfectly fine. Matthews one-off is always fine. Full stacking, like if you want to stack Toronto for the power play matchup, like that's okay, I guess. But again, I think I'd rather just go play Colorado. On the Seattle side, like I'll shout out Wright, McCann, Burakovsky here because Burakovsky and Shane Wright have actually played well together this year, at least well offensively. Almost 100 minutes together, 68 shot attempts, 3 expected goals, 3 actual goals per 60. McCann's come alive a little bit of late since they moved Burakovsky to that line. He has 11 shots in his last 4 games. He's on the top power play unit. They don't get a lot of ice time. They're a little bit overpriced for a line that's going to skate 14 to 16 minutes. But, after the Matthews line, the rest of the lines haven't really been that good defensively, and I think that kind of favors Seattle. I don't mind McCann, Wright, Burakovsky. I just think they're a little bit overpriced, and then some one-offs on Toronto.
Yep. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.4 total. Heading into San Jose, the Tiburones have a 2.6 total. I have such an American accent when I speak in Spanish with a cold. I will never do that again. I apologize for the inconvenience. San Jose going Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund. I could stop there. Vancouver going Pettersson, Garland, DeBrusk, Besser, Hedel, O'Connor. For some reason, that line is 17,100. How? DraftKings. This is the highest total Vancouver's had in a long time. Thank you, Sharks. Or I hate you, Sharks, depending on your stance on this game. Hedel has looked decent, I guess, with Vancouver. Like, that's not the issue. Like, Hedel's going to look fine. It's just a matter of if he stays healthy, if he gets top power play time. This is a really good power play spot. I don't really want to play Pettersson, DeBrusk, Garland. Like, I just don't. They're 19,000. They're only coming in at 2.5% ownership. That would be the reason to play them. But again, they're at that price range where I don't want to play them. 19,000. If they're 19,000, I want a good line. They haven't been. So, like, I guess I would default to Hedel, Besser, O'Connor. And again, like, they're fine, but 17-1 is just too expensive. Like,
I mean, you talk about price increases. Philip Hedels has gone up, I think it's 2,400 in 2 games.
Yeah, but like, yeah, that's nuts. And if you think about it, 3 weeks ago, JT Miller, Brock Besser, and anybody was like 12-1.
Yes.
How is this line 17,000? I like Drew O'Connor. But what?
Yeah, like Miller, Besser, Garland, honestly, like 2 weeks ago was like 12,800 or something. And now the Pettersson line is 19K.
It's like they're trying to price us out of playing him, and I appreciate that. Because if they were like 13, 14K, it's going to be like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like Pettersson, 19K, Hedel, 17.1, Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund, 17.9. I'm just going to go play Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund. 8.7% top two stack, highest top two stack in this game. 7% projected ownership. They're fully correlated. Celebrate, like my rules with the Sharks. Is Jake Wallman playing? Yes. Is Toffoli playing? Yes. If Toffoli is playing with Celebrini and Wallman is in the lineup, I have interest. So yes, I have interest in Sharks 1. You can do what you want with Vancouver. For me, they're priced out.
Yeah, it is pretty wild how expensive Vancouver has gotten very, very quickly. I'm wondering if DK, because I noticed it happened to both Vancouver and Toronto here today, and they're both facing bottom 5 teams. Yeah, exactly. Like they're trying to, not have Vancouver 1 in a great spot at 12,500. But it is kind of nuts. Like Elias Pettersson has 1 goal in his last 10 games, and his price has gone up $2,000 over his last 5. You know what I mean? It's like, I appreciate the dynamic pricing because now you actually have to, don't sit there and do I play 20% Vancouver? Garland and Pettersson have been able to create well. They haven't been able to finish. 2.9 expected goals and over 200 minutes together, but they're shooting 7%. That's a problem because Pettersson is a guy that typically lives on efficiency. But if you're going to get efficient facing the worst team in the NHL, a bottom 3 team for sure, with Vitek Vanacek in net, so you're not even going to have to face Askarov. And as I mentioned earlier, the only penalty kill worse than St. Louis since January 1st is San Jose's. I honestly don't mind some sort of power play stack from the Vancouver side. This is probably a spot where I want to get guys out of the, in the top 6. So if you want to do like Hedel, Besser, Garland, or Hedel, Besser, DeBrusk or something like that, like I think that's kind of fine. Shout out Connor Garland. He got booted off the power play, especially where with no Quinn Hughes, Philip Hronik is going to be running the power play. But at the same time, we know how bad this team has been offensively without Quinn Hughes in the lineup. So like these Vancouver guys are all like 40 to 60% more expensive than they were a week ago, and they don't have Quinn Hughes in the lineup with them. I don't know, man. I think it's a Vancouver power play stack, but this is probably one of those games where I'm just crossing my fingers and hoping that Vancouver doesn't fill the net. I think I'm kind of out on their forwards. For me, I'm more interested in the San Jose side. Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund. That top line's up to 100 minutes together, 2.9 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals per 60 minutes. If you look at their minutes with Jake Wallman on the ice, they're even better offensively. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. Eklund and Celebrini are going to play over 20 minutes. Celebrini, Toffoli, and Eklund is honestly what I like best in this game. I get playing Vancouver. It's a great matchup for them, but considering the huge price increases and no Quinn Hughes, I think I'm looking for reasons not to.
Yeah. And like the most important offensive player on Vancouver is Quinn Hughes. It's not Pettersson. It was never Miller. It's not Besser. It's not Hedel. It's Quinn Hughes.
I mean, Quinn Hughes is not probably shouldn't only be in the running for Norris, but MVP as well.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. He's carrying that sorry ass franchise. Sorry if you're a Canucks fan, not really, but I attempted to make you feel better about yourself. Let's talk about some defensemen here. Top of the board: Makar, Werenski, Sergachev, Chikrin, Uyghur. Now Werenski's a game time decision. He did skate this morning on the power play, so I would assume Dina Vason's comments were a bit tongue-in-cheek. We'll see. Like, if you're practicing there, you're probably playing there. But just keep that in mind. If Werenski's out, Provorov becomes one of the best plays on the slate again. Like, Makar's fine for the power play. I think my favorite play in the guys 6K and above is Sergachev. If you're not playing, if Werenski's out, it would be Sergachev.
Yeah. Werenski has the top projection and top point per dollar value of any defenseman over 6K here tonight. In fact, he has the top point per dollar value of any defenseman higher than 4,000. So I think Werenski is just generally one of the best plays on the board here. And his price has come down, unlike the forwards, his price has come down $2,000 over the last couple of weeks. Mackenzie Weegar, he's in a fine spot as well to rack up some peripherals. I don't mind Cale Makar as a one-off for this reason. I know he's playing him with Colorado is tough, but it is a really good power play spot. So if that power play goes like 2 for 4 or something, I think Makar could have a really big game. So I don't mind Makar, but Werenski's my favorite expensive defenseman. Philip Hronek, I mean, he's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes, and he's running the top power play for Vancouver. So he's probably just one of the best defensemen on the board, period. Darren Radish, he's splitting, he's on the top power play now with Victor Hedman in Tampa. So Radish makes sense. Thomas Chabot, I always say as long as he's under 5K, Thomas Chabot makes sense just because of the peripherals he can put up, and he's 4,700. Jake Wallman, certainly. He's a guy that can put up peripherals, and it's not that bad of a spot with Vancouver in town. For cheap defensemen, there's not a whole lot I like. Well, shout out Simon Nemec. He's paired up with Jack Hughes. He was playing in the AHL. He played the entire season in the NHL last year. He did have a bad start to the season, so I get why they demoted him. But he's truly one of the top defense prospects in the league. Ice time is a concern, but there aren't a lot of super cheap defensemen here. And Nemec is 2,500. Nemec, Joel Hanley for Calgary, because they're going to be, they're still without Kevin Ball. Joel Hanley played over 20 minutes has played over 20 minutes in his last 2 games and over 19 in 4 straight. So if you need another guy that's near min price, Joel Hanley from Calgary. If you want to pay up a little bit, Jonas Brodin, he's under 4K for Minnesota. I think he makes sense. Adam Larson for Seattle, he's projecting well. Luke Hughes, he's quote on the third pair. I still think he ends up with the most ice time of any New Jersey defenseman here. So I don't mind Luke Hughes, Ryan McDonough, and even 3K for Tampa at home against Ottawa as well.
Yeah, Nemec had a really bad start this season, but in his last 20 games in the AHL, I think he has 19 points. So, if he gets 16, 17,
like over the last 2 years, it's something like 35 points in 50 games in the AHL. Like, he is a good defenseman. It's just, he's 20 years old or whatever. Like, give the kid a little bit of time to grow.
Yeah, and when there were so many injuries last year, he was on their top pair for a good chunk of the season. So it's not like he's going to be too, wide-eyed for the moment. Let's talk about goalies here. Why? I don't know. I think if I'm spending up, it would be Vasilevsky. Not that I love it, but I don't really prefer anyone else in that range. I think Ingram's fine at 7,900. Stolarz is back for the Leafs, which is nice. He's fine at 7,700. If I'm spending down, it's between Decord and Gustafsson. And if you really, 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 really need the salary, you just hope that Calgary stays out of the box. I think Dustin Wolf is fine.
Yeah, the top projected goalies, Vasilevsky. He's not that much higher than Demko. Demko has a lot of shutout equity against San Jose, but Vasilevsky's the top projected goalie, and I think that makes sense for Tampa here tonight. Mackenzie Blackwood, I do think Calgary's a little bit better offensively with Farabee and Frost in the lineup, but I still do worry about them being able to generally generate good shot quality. So I don't mind Blackwood. Those are the expensive-ish goalies I would look at here tonight. I think Connor Ingram's fine as well against Columbus. I always worry about stacking against our boys, the Columbus Blue Jackets, but he has a solid projection here. For cheaper goalies, Phil Gustafson from Minnesota, of course, makes a lot of sense. Any team facing Carolina, their goalie always makes sense. I also had Dustin Wolf down because it's basically like if Colorado doesn't shred them on the power play, I really don't hate the matchup for Calgary at 5-on-5. It's just if Colorado goes 2 for 3 on the power play, then Wolf's night's probably over. But if they can hold them off, I think he could have a decent game for 7,100 here. Also, shout out Merzlikins just because he has been on a pretty good little heater. 13.2 DK points over his last 10 games on average. 7,500. He's a little bit more expensive than I like, but I think Merzlikins is fine if you're living in that price range.
Yep. I see we have a Netchus hat trick pick already in the chat. There's 5 games tomorrow, depending on GPPs. Maybe we'll be back. I don't know if we are. It's been a week. We'll talk about it. But anyway, who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going Seattle. I think it's kind of a revenge narrative, although it'd be several years by now. I'm going Jared McCann.
Yeah. Got traded there, and then they left him. I love that story. We don't have time for it. I'm going Clayton Keller.
Good enough.
Yeah. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll possibly see you tomorrow. Definitely see you on Saturday. Last show for 2 weeks. Good luck, everybody, tonight. And hopefully we're kicking off the show talking about how you won the dinero.
Good luck tonight, everyone.